Hey everyone, it's Chelsea with Savannah Wren Studio, and today I am out at Loose Park, right down by the Loose Park pond. I want to pick up my phone so you can see. I'm looking out over the pond, just sitting on some rocks nearby. Two of my kiddos decided to come with me. They're having fun exploring the area around me. What I wanted to do today is just kind of meet, since I didn't get to do a circle in November, I wanted to just get together, even if it's, in person or on Facebook Live, because this is something I really want to try to do once a month, where we can get together and hold space for each other with whatever work that we're currently doing for ourselves around grief and loss that we've felt, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, when it just feels like we've hit this flashpoint moment where whenever I talk to people, they're always like, there's before the pandemic and then there's everything after. And I know a lot of us are holding on to grief surrounding the pandemic in a multitude of facets. But, there's a lot of times that I just feel like we need a space where we can sit down together and tell someone how we're feeling, what we're going through, what we're experiencing, and find that support. And I just feel like the last 4 or 5 years, it's been harder to do that, to find support in our daily lives. It just feels like we're all completely isolated in spaces, whether those are literal isolation, like with the lockdown, or is figurative isolation, where we've drawn ourselves in for protection and for safety mode to make sure that we are safe during times of stress and trouble. So, today is kind of a day I would love to hear, what your intentions for this group might be. My intentions, as I said, are for us to get together and hold space for each other, perhaps do some shadow work or integration work together as a group. I truly believe that having a community around you as you go through some of your deepest, darkest shadows is one of the most powerful experiences that we can have in this life. I know from personal experience that when I am with my community, my friends, people that I feel trust with, and I feel like they have my safety and well-being at heart just as I do for them, then we can work together to tackle anything that any of us is going through, or that we want to discuss with other people, but maybe we feel shame or guilt around it. One of my kiddos came up and apparently found some sort of plastic peony that they wanted to give me. Hi.
Hi. Hi. We found a fairy tree.
You found a fairy tree?
Yeah, we found a fairy tree.
Ah.
We have to wait until you're done.
Okay.
Molly, come on, let's go. Let's go to the tree.
Why don't you guys go explore? Silly things. So, I'd love for if you want to type out, some thoughts, feel free to do so, or bring them with you to the next group gathering. Today's probably the last time that I'm going to try to do it outside. I'll probably do it more of an indoor space going forward for January, given how cold January usually gets. But what I wanted to do specifically for today, along with discussing, what our intentions might be for the group and what we see the group functioning as, is I just wanted to give a reference on how I see grief and loss. So a couple of weeks ago, I had posted on my Instagram and my Facebook group that I had made a whole bunch of grief stones. I scoured through, the hundreds of millions of stones that my kids bring home and give to me constantly on our walks. And I found a whole bunch that I thought were really pretty, but they were also a little bit on the smoother side. And after grabbing a huge chunk of them, I sat down and I thought, you know what? These little stones really symbolize how grief and loss can turn up in our lives. And so what I did over the coming weeks is I thought about all the different kinds of grief and loss that we can experience throughout our lives. And I went through and I wrote down each and every one of them onto these little rocks. So for instance, this one says loss of a loved one, injuries and illness, so physical health can cause feelings of loss, feelings of grief. If you've been in an accident or you've experienced accidents. This one was really hard for me. Not meeting your expectations or your dream. Feeling that loss of, I expected it to come out this way. I expected to be this place in my life. I expected to be this kind of person. And things didn't pan out the way that I thought, and how you can feel that sense of loss and grief around those expectations or that dream that you had. I'm currently going through one of those. Been going through that one for close to 10 years. It's not a really fun one. In any case, for many of us, our lives are filled with a whole bunch of different little pebbles and stones that comprise our experiences. Whether it's the death of a loved one, the death of a pet, multiple loved ones, multiple pets, your family house burning down, issues with your physical or mental health or even spiritual health. A lot of times, rather than all of the little stones that we see and that we are feeling, what grief tends to actually feel like inside of us is one large stone or heavy weight in the pit of our stomach, or weight on our shoulders, in our back, in our heart space, where we struggle to differentiate you know, is this one instance, or is it hundreds of instances that are feeling like we're carrying the weight of loss and grief with us? And, you know, moving forward, one of the things that I really want to do, possibly in January, is just hold space and have an activity where we can sit down and discuss with each other in a compassionate and loving way, you know, some of the things that we've experienced and some of the losses that we have endured and how that's affecting us. Now, I fully believe that, you know, when it comes to support groups and getting support from people, we really have to have that consent and that trust built into the group so that we feel safe to share with others. And so if at any time, if you don't feel called to share, that is not a problem at all for this group. If you feel more comfortable just coming to the group and holding space for others, I think that that is amazing. Wanting to be there for others and then slowly building that trust within yourself and within the group to someday share along the road. And so there's no expectations that you have to participate or that you have to share anything. You can come to the group and just sit and listen and be that witness for the people that feel called to share. This past month and a half, beginning in mid-October, I had started doing a couple of personal self-growth, self-evaluation projects, where one of them is more of a shadow work project where I was taking stock of, you know, my experiences that have left lingering shadows, lingering feelings of guilt and shame, of stress, of trauma. Whereas the second one was about, all right, now I've taken stock of that information. I've learned about myself. I've learned about the situation and how it panned out and how it affected me. Now, what can I do on the opposite side of that so that I no longer feel like I need to carry the weight of those shadows? So the first project on the shadow work is called Shadow's Journey. It's something that I'm doing on my Patreon, and doing for myself. And then the healing side is 13 Moons project, and both of them are working on this month by month, you know, mini projects where you're...
We found trash.
Oh, you found trash?
And then I found this. Look at this right here.
Ooh,
And
that's a wood beetle.
But Mom,
A weaver.
Look what River found
Oh,
for you.
yay.
We just got to clean it.
I appreciate you cleaning up the trash in the park. That's really cool. But yeah, so my kiddos brought me a stick that has some weaver notches in it.
And look,
Yeah.
right here, too.
Oh yeah,
Some-
we got a toadstool on it. Ooh, that's a pretty toadstool. Look at
See,
that.
Mom, look at this.
Nice, pretty.
See? So
Yes,
put it
that's a Svedka bottle.
What's that? What's a Svedka? Nothing's in it.
That's an alcoholic bottle. So
There's
we'll take that home and we will recycle it.
No, we can still use it. We can just...
Oh, we can recycle it.
But we can still use it. We can just clean it
We can
out.
recycle it.
No, we can
All right.
use it.
Okay. Why don't you guys go run up to the top of that hill
Oh,
and
look
check
at
out that sycamore up there. That's a really cool sycamore. And they're off. So what I did the last month and a half is, like I said, I took stock of a lot of not only the shadows that I have in my life, but specifically the grief, the loss that I feel has weighed me down in ways that have left me feeling frozen in place and unable to move forward in ways that I really felt like I needed to grow and expand. And as I was coming up with these lists, and I was drawing different artwork around it, what I really wanted from myself last month was I wanted some sort of symbolic ritual or way that I can start that journey of putting down those burdens, taking that weight off of me in a forgiving and compassionate way. I tend to be my own worst enemy, my own worst critic. If anyone, gives me constructive or non-constructive criticism, I can bet you that I am giving myself way harsher criticism than anyone else around me. So what I had come up with that I thought was a good just starting off way to help me move forward, give me that spiritual momentum and fortitude to continue month after month, is I feel the most connected to things when I can have a physical representation of what I'm doing and what archetypes I'm calling in. And for every Samhain or Halloween that I've celebrated since graduating from high school, we always create little boats to symbolize our loved ones that we've lost during the course of the year, and then we carry those boats to a body of water, whether it is the lake near our house, a stream, a river. Heck, there was one time that we did a puddle because we didn't have anything else, because water acts as a veil between our reality and the spiritual world. And on Samhain, that veil is a lot thinner, and so by symbolically sending our loved ones out into the water where their boat will eventually, sink and fall underneath the veil of the water, we're symbolically helping them cross over and move on to their next phase or stage as a soul. And so taking that idea, one of the first activities I kind of wanted to do as a group was to create little boats for ourselves that would allow us to just symbolize and envision us moving forward with grief and loss. And, I'm not saying that this is, the best way, the right way for everyone, but it's a way that I know I feel comfortable doing. It's a way that works for me, and I wanted to offer it up for the group as an idea. So what I did was, my parents, they live in the sand dunes of Kansas. So specifically Hutchinson, Kansas, which is about 45 minutes outside of Wichita. Because it's the sand dunes, we have a lot of yucca plants, and one of the heaviest griefs that I've been carrying with the last 18 months has been the loss of my parents' house. The house that they built with their own two hands before I was born. The only house that I had ever known from my parents. And they lost it in a freak wildfire that destroyed hundreds of other homes in the area. And what I asked my dad to do was to find a whole bunch of yucca pods for me. So if you've never had an experience with yucca pods, they kind of look like this when they dry. And inside of these little pods that expand out, now before they dry, they're usually a green color and they're very hard. Not to be weird or crazy, but when my cousins and I were little, we would take those giant hard pods and chuck them at each other. Yeah, fun times growing up in the 80s and 90s. Back to the pods. Inside these pods, you've got tons and tons of wafer thin seeds, yucca seeds. And so my thought was, when they dry, you can shake out the pods, it gets these little seeds out, and then you end up with this fairly light material. And when you break them off, they usually come in a pod of 3 or 4. You get basically a little boat. See how it's hollow in the center? The one that I'm currently holding has a whole bunch of those yucca seeds. See if you can see them. They look like little itty bitty frisbees. That's gorgeous.
Petals and the leaves.
Thank you.
This big wood.
Awesome.
Then I found this one. Yeah.
Cool. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, my little ferrets.
We have to.
Have you been over by that bridge?
Oh, we didn't go over there because we went all the way over there.
There's 2 bridges over there. You should go check out.
Yeah. Let me.
Whoa.
Let me just go find more stuff to get your mom.
Okay. So I'm working on this. Okay. So the idea is that we break off these little pods, whether you want a small 1 pod or a flat 2 pod. The boat that I built is out of 2 pods. And then I found online rice paper. So it's not rice paper as in this is the kind of rice paper that we roll up fruits, vegetables and things like that for like spring rolls, but actual paper made from rice, and so it is dissolvable in water. It dissolves in water. And what I did for myself is I took a little piece of the paper, I put a toothpick through it, folded it over, and on the front I wrote down some of my biggest, heaviest feelings of loss and grief. So for instance, the expectations I had for my health, for my friendships, my marriage, my dream house and dream property, career expectations, things like that on the front. And then on the back, I said that I forgive myself in love and grace. Because, while some of these, are out of my control, some of the other ones are choices that I made at the time to survive, to make it through, and it took me down a course that diverged from what I expected in my life to be like. And there's nothing wrong with making those choices, but there still can be that lingering feeling of, oh man, if I'd only done it this way, I would have been where I wanted to be. If I hadn't have made this choice instead of that choice, maybe things would have been different. And there's times that I feel like that is some of the hardest grief, when it's more abstract rather than, you know, something more concrete where you can pinpoint where that grief and loss is coming from. So the idea is that we've got a little sail, we've got a little boat to just kick off that momentum and movement. And maybe next time when we get together, we can do it as a group, or you can do it by yourself. You know, if you want to make one of these little boats, you can, you know, you can scrounge around for what materials you have. Of course, the reason that I've done things out of the rice paper and out of the yucca pods is I really want them to be biodegradable. I want to make sure that they are not hindering or hurting the earth by me doing this ritual. So putting that toothpick in creates the little boat, and I'm always big on, if I'm planting the seed of this grief work, I want to plant a seed in reality that I can reference moving forward. So I also bought a whole bunch of little lotus pods. Now, to be honest, I have no idea whether or not these lotus pods and lily pads will actually grow when I set my ship off into the pond, but you know, that's my hope, is I want to send something out. And what better place to do it is then to put it into your boat. So for instance, if you do a 2-pod, then you can tuck that seed into the back of the boat. The idea being that as the boat deteriorates, it will sink the little lotus or lily pad seed down, and they will grow over time in the water to create beautiful lily pads that not only help the biodiversity of the pond or water or lake that you're doing, but it also will bring, you know, future joy and happiness to other people. So after creating the little boat, the next step for me is that I'm going to release the boat onto a body of water, set sail, basically watching myself move forward in that, with that confidence that and strength that I need to do some of this harder work. So let me flip the camera around. We'll walk the 15 or so feet down to the lake, and then you can watch me set off my little boat, and maybe it'll give you ideas for yourself to do down the road, whether that's with the group or, you know, on an individual level, because you don't have to do what I'm doing necessarily. This is just how my brain connects with the world around me. I just finding those patterns, figuring out pattern recognitions, finding archetypes, and using that imagery as a way to help myself. I've just found that that is the most, the best way that I can connect with this metaphysical side. So let me put my shoes on. I'm going to turn the camera around. Like I said, just sitting down close to the lake here at Loose Park. Originally I was going to do it at the creek behind my house, but you know, it's a little overgrown with grass and things like that, and I can't quite see, you know, where it's dirt and when it's rocks, and I was like, this is a little bit weird, so I'm gonna do it where I think, you know, the lily pad has a little bit more opportunity to grow, given that ducks and fish are in this lake, and they will, you know, hopefully get use out of these lily pads. So let me turn the camera around really quick. Okay, so we've got the camera. Like I said, we're just right here down by the park, or down by the pond. There we go. I've got my little boat with me, with my sail. I've got my little lotus lily pad pod. Ooh. Huh. I think there might actually be a koi down there. Huh. Never know. All right. Making sure that you don't fall in, because it's gonna be cold. All right, let's set that little pod in. Oh yeah, there was a koi down there. It jumped up. Hi, koi. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna pick up my camera. But the little boat is just going crazy. Here we go. There it is. Bye, boat. Look at it go. It's so awesome. So that's kind of what I had for today. Hopefully we can get together in January indoors. I wish you, you know, all the best, and I will hopefully talk to you soon. Bye. Bye, Jane.